taking responsibility for the strikes that have taken place in the dead of the night, and now it is the president, the leader of the nation of Venezuela, who has been captured.
Well, this is one of the most daring military operations that I've heard of. Effectively, the United States have gone into Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. They have captured President Maduro and his wife and flown them out of there. The attacks, the specific hits which were taking place on Venezuela in the Caracas region took place a couple of hours back. But since then, they have deployed ground soldiers. They have taken custody of the Venezuelan president and his wife and flown them out. I'm just going to go through the statement of the US president before we can perhaps discuss the reasons why America says it's done this. So Trump has tweeted, not tweeted, on his social media platform, he said the US has successfully carried out large-scale strikes against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who's been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. The operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. Details will follow. There will be a news conference at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thanks for your attention to this matter. As simple as that. Now, there's been this back and forth between the United States and Venezuela for an extended period of time. America has been trying to block oil tankers from Venezuela, which is an oil-rich country. In terms of some of the official reasons that the US has stated so far on their angst or their concerns on Venezuela, it is that the Maduro regime floods the US with deadly drugs, such as fentanyl, which is of course a major concern in the United States. The Venezuelan government supports gangs like the Tren de Aragua, which is a violent Venezuelan gang which is involved in human trafficking, among other reasons, and is also perhaps involved in the mass migration of Venezuelan migrants to the United States. That's something that the US completely opposes. And Venezuela, America says, harbors the cartel de los Soles, which is embedded in the government. So that's another drug cartel. But there are other broader regions as well. A greater American presence in Venezuela would ensure that they've got access to the world's largest some of the world's largest oil reserves, which are in Venezuela. It's a broader statement of US policy as well at this juncture. It sends very strong statements to countries like Iran as well.
Right, and the backing that Venezuela has and the closeness that it has with other countries is also an issue that the United States president has been having.
Well, I'm not sure about the support, that specific support, other than the support from Iran, which Venezuela has really had. But Maduro has been fighting a losing battle. In fact, there's a soundbite of Donald Trump where he was less than flattering when asked by a journalist in the last couple of days about what more Venezuela needed to do. Apparently Maduro had reached out to the United States, was trying to get some sort of resolution happening over there, but apparently Trump was just not interested. There was a huge presence of US Navy ships. This is of course very much their backyard off the coast of Venezuela. The Venezuelan military is not something which would at all have been adept at taking on an American ground invasion. That's what's taken place. This is a ground invasion in a sense, and one where they hit targets in Caracas. Their soldiers went in, captured Maduro and his wife, and then flown them out. It's one of the most it's an incredible commando mission, to say the least, a special forces operation. But it's been done and it's dusted, and there'll be a press conference where they're going to be reporting this. America had threatened something like this, and they've now gone ahead and done it.
Right, for weeks now, Donald Trump has been, in fact, threatening of these strikes, and finally these strikes, have been heard since, 2 o'clock in the morning local time. Let's just get your reactions also when we talk about reactions coming in, particularly from Iran. In fact, Iran, an ally of Venezuela, has condemned the strikes and has called it a blatant violation of its national sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Iranian Foreign Ministry has called on the United Nations Security Council to act to halt the unlawful aggression and to hold those responsible accountable. Vishnu, of course, this is something that Donald Trump, like we were discussing, has been warning of. While it is the, president who's gone on to say this is an attempt only to overthrow him, and that he's denied all kind of allegations against him, including him heading the drug cartel in Venezuela.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there are 2 or 3 official reasons which have been stated. But I think the point that you were raising about Iran is actually quite important, because just in the last couple of days, the United States has said, Trump has said that they are locked and loaded with regard to Iran. And if there are any potential continued attacks against women and others in Iran, because there are large-scale protests, then America will not hesitate to take military action. Iran is a close partner of Venezuela. Venezuela has now been invaded. Their president has been taken into custody of the United States with his wife and flown out of that country. So whatever Iran really says at this stage, the fact of the matter is that this is a surgical operation done by America, a special forces operation. Imagine the intelligence that they would have had. They would have been monitoring Maduro and his movements on a 24-hour basis. We'll never get to know exactly how they did it. This is stuff that will end up being in movies and films in the future. But whether there was an inside hand, somebody who was closely monitoring Maduro, who was able to track his movements and give American forces access to Maduro, or whether they actually went in and forced entry and got hold of him and flew him out, that's something that we don't know at this stage. But just a couple of hours after hitting Venezuela with air attacks, with attack helicopters as well, in port areas and in other areas. We've got footage of that up on screen. We've got this message, and there was some footage of Chinook helicopters, which are transport helicopters of the United States, flying overhead Caracas. So Maduro has been captured and taken to the United States. It's quite unbelievable, the speed and the pace at which this has happened.
Vishnu, when was the last time that the United States, threatened of attacks and carried out with those attacks in this close proximity that has happened?
Well, there have been many threats that the United States has carried out, and the most recent one would be their decision to hit Iran along with Israel when it appeared that Iran was working towards a military solution against Israel a couple of months back, which may have seen a large-scale missile exchange, perhaps the possible use or development of a nuclear option. I'm not sure whether they ever actually had nuclear weapons, but clearly America wanted to destroy their ability to make nuclear weapons, which is why they went and hit Iran. That was done in fairly short notice from a military standpoint.
Right, of course, now Venezuela, of course, they're saying that this is an attempt only to steal its oil and its minerals, and that is why these strikes have been carried out.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Venezuela has got one of the largest supplies of oil in the world. Whether these strikes will be limited to what the U.S. has done, targeting Maduro, or whether this is, a stage one of a process which will result in an America-led, an America-led operation to get a new regime in place in Venezuela is what we're going to have to see. And there are those who say that Trump's got his eyes on Venezuelan oil. Whether or not that is actually something that takes place, we're going to have to see. But yes, Venezuela does have one of the largest reserves of oil, a lot of it undeveloped, anywhere in the world. And access to that is what critics of Trump say that this is essentially all about. Trump, of course, says, no, that's not the case. The U.S. says that the Maduro regime floods the U.S. with deadly drugs. They've recently, off the coast of Florida, for example, taken out boats or semi-submersible vessels with allegedly carrying drugs into the United States. They've blown them up and killed those on board. So America has been on the offensive against Venezuela, but this is quite clearly a huge mission where you physically take the president of Venezuela into captivity in a special operations in a special operation lasting just a couple of hours.
Vishnu, and that announcement that is going to be made at 11 o'clock in the morning US time, which is going to be at about 10 o'clock our time tonight, is when that announcement is going to be made from Mar-a-Lago. So all eyes on that announcement by the US president, but he has taken responsibility, Vishnu, just as the Venezuelan leader had said that it is the US behind these attacks, and of course then had gone on to declare national emergency in the country. What is the state of the situation on the ground at the moment, given the fact that these strikes have been carried out? They don't have a leader, so to speak.